Welcome back to the Capes and Tights podcast right here on capesandtights.com. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. This episode, we talk to the co-creator of The Approach over at Boom Studios, Jeremy Haun, as well as we talk about other stuff on the podcast, comic books in general, the world of comics, a little bit about how bad Jason Hurley's tastes in Christmas movies are. But check out this episode right here on capesandtights.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, as well as Spotify, Apple, and all your major podcasting platforms. But for all of that information and much more on the world of comic books, comic book movies, games, toys, all that stuff, check out capesandtights.com. But this episode is with Jeremy Haun, co-creator and writer of The Approach over at Boom Studios. Enjoy, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm great, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. You're wearing your yellow hat. I see that quite often on Instagram.
Yeah. It's now that it's winter, I got to keep the head as warm as possible. I think the thing about when you start buzzing your hair, nobody explains like oh yeah, men wore nightcaps in movies because they were generally old and bald and
yes.
Needed to keep their heads warm. So yeah, body temperature, you just cover the head.
Yes, during the pandemic, the height of the pandemic, I would just buzz my hair. I used to go to the barber all the time, and that's one of those weird things that like summertime was fine, and the wintertime I'd be like, oh my gosh, and I started to like it. And then my wife was kind of like, you need to go back to the barber.
Yeah.
So I went to the barber. Now I have an actual haircut that I didn't do myself. So
I don't know. I when my hair started, kind of doing the thing, I was like, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna do early Bruce Willis. I'm gonna do like later where he just realized he's gonna go ahead and buzz his hair.
Yeah.
Although, then you look at somebody like Walton Goggins, who on Justified, he's just like his hair is just insane. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do that.
Well, I mean, you can't. Not everybody can pull it off either, though. Not saying that you couldn't pull it off. I'm just saying I could definitely not pull it off. My dad was the same way. My dad was like, okay, if I'm going to start it's getting too receding, I'm just going to go the whole thing off and not do the whole, around the outside thing. But enough with hair and grooming and things like that. We could talk comic books, even though I could talk anything I wanted to talk about. But I just like getting started by talking to people that are on the podcast to talk about how you got into reading comic books in the first place. Sure. Not like working in comics, but how your love for comic books got started.
Yeah. I grew up with a single mom. I have two younger brothers, but one's 2.5 years younger. The other's 10 years younger. And, a single mom, we were incredibly poor, especially when I was really, really young. And so she worked at a little dime store, and there was a spinner rack in the store, and we never had any money for anything. So Charlie, the guy that ran the pharmacy, the dime store, would tear the comic book covers off, and then instead of throwing away the comics, he would give me those comics, those coverless comics, which I think was a huge gift. I mean, we never had anything ever, except I would get comics that that just didn't have the covers. It took me forever to realize comics actually had covers, but and honestly, it just grew from there. I think that I started reading really early because of comics, and I think my mom really dug that. I was later, like I was around 10 or 11, I got sick and had to go to the hospital. And my grandmother went, and I was going to be in the hospital for a couple days. And she went and to the local grocery store and bought every comic on the spinner rack. And these had covers. But that really even, it went from being something that, like, when I was a kid, we would go to flea markets or whatever, and you'd get like a stack of massive stack of books for $1 or $2 kind of thing. And so I always had like really discordant books. You'd have like GI Combat next to Archie, next to Superman, next to a weird back issue of the X-Men that like was missing like pages from it or something like that. You get these really weird things. And then, but my grandma, when she brought me those, there were a couple issues of things in there, and like those, I specifically remember Elf Quest, the Wendy and Richard King, mostly Wendy, but like that book was coming out from Marvel. It was the colorized edition, and issue 3 and issue 4 were both in that stack of stuff that she got me. And it really it kind of kicked off the sequential bug. It made me realize that like all of these stories were connected, that there was there was a Flash 86 and then 87, and that story connected, went on. And so after that I was just like, well, I want to find as many comics as I can, and living in small towns, really small towns without comic shops, you kind of had to find them where you could. But so I started convincing them to let me drive to the larger city, and not to let me drive. I'm still like 12 at this time. That would have been really an amazing story. But I ended up going to shops and then finding all of those issues, and even realizing that like a lot of these shops had back issue bins where you could get, you may not be able to get caught up on much of anything, but you could get, you could go and you could find that, where, this was a good jumping on spot in the X-Men. And then I just dove in deep.
I love people's origin story. Like, I feel like that's a cool thing to get into, because I've talked to people on the podcast before where they're like, oh, well, I'm just an artist. And all of a sudden I know I just fell into comic books. I really didn't even read them prior to drawing or anything like that. And everyone, I think, has a slightly different story. And, the ripping the covers off thing is kind of funny too, because end up you actually drawing and illustrating covers, and later on in your life, you didn't even get that first initial like selling factor of a book was the cover of a comic book.
Right. Well, and it's interesting too, like how you come into comics really does affect so much of that stuff. Like forever I was more of a sequentials interior guy. I always thought about storytelling and things like that. And there's weird issues. Like I ended up with a lot of EC books and it's like 60s and 70s weird horror stuff, or stuff that was not necessarily superhero stuff that I'd kind of end up snagging. And I think a lot about like the illustration style in those and the storytelling, and that really informed a lot of what I love. I mean, I love comic covers, but like it's just interesting how when I was very young, I didn't see many covers, and then I got older and was still obsessed with so much with the stories.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of us, some people who got into comics more recently, they may not understand that variant covers weren't around forever. So it's like, if you weren't the artist of the actual series, you didn't get a chance to do some X-Men cover or whatever.
Right.
And having that be an option nowadays for some people. I mean, some people make a living. That's all they do is variant covers and covers for people. And which is kind of cool. I that's kind of like, I make beer can labels for a living. So that idea of one single image for a can and it's done, and then I move on to the next thing is something that I really enjoy. I mean, I don't know if I could do a sequential art, storyline thing. Drawing the same person over and over and over again is not something that I think of. It's not that I don't think I could do. I just don't think of it that way. I want to do that one and done kind of thing. So,
Yeah. I mean, I think there is, for covers specifically, you're thinking about iconography. You're thinking about something that is one issue that speaks to maybe it doesn't speak to the issue, because I think that happens a lot now, is like we need something that speaks to the series, not to the specific issue. And that's been a thing really lately. But like, back in the day, you'd have the interior artist also drawing the covers often. Like occasionally you'd have other people doing it, but it was mostly, if it was, obviously Jack Kirby is a genius regardless, but like, Jack Kirby drew the insides of the book and the cover itself. Will Eisner would do both, and it's interesting that like the way that these individuals had to learn everything. They had to know how to do, storytelling, sequential moments. They had to be able to tell a clear, concise story, but then they had to like really knock it out of the park with one iconic image that would make people want to look at it. And I think now there, a lot of times I feel like there is a tendency, there's a tendency to kind of push people into like, oh, you're a cover artist camp, or, oh, you just do, interiors. And I think that first of all, I think that while we love, putting people in little boxes, being like, oh, you're the interiors person, you're the, I think that we need to choose what kind of creative we're going to be. And, for me, one of the biggest decisions that I really made was after for years being told that I was just an interiors guy. I was a guy that was day to day, gonna draw the guts of a book, which is awesome and it's great. But like, I also chose that I wanted to figure out the iconography for myself. I wanted to look at covers and figure out not necessarily just how other people did that, but how I did that, because I think that that's an incredibly important thing, figuring out your own path for illustration.
It's funny how you say the putting people into boxes. I had he's now a buddy of mine, Joseph Schmalke, on. He's an artist, but he calls himself a storyteller now. And I said, well, what would you like to be called? What do you tell people that you do for a living? And he's like, well, I'm a comic book storyteller, because he does do covers, interiors, the script, the writing, he doesn't do lettering anymore, because he said he did that once, and he's like, there's special people that could do those covers. Right. And obviously he doesn't edit his own books, but like he said, hey, I want to be a comic book storyteller. And I would say put you in the same category because of the fact that you do covers, you've done interiors, you do storytelling and writing. And so like by telling someone you're a comic book artist or a comic book writer or cover artist or interior artist, it's not, you don't encapsulate everything that you do. So a storyteller would be what I would consider calling you.
Well, I think so. I think that like there was years and years ago, I remember Barry Windsor Smith released a project that was literally called Barry Windsor Smith Storyteller. And I, back from his Conan work, I was a huge fan of the stuff that he did. He did some X-Men stuff, like the Life Death stuff, and I was a huge fan of Barry's stuff. But when Barry Windsor Smith's Storyteller came out, I was like, well, that's a little bit, hoity-toity. And I think that's when we were really trying to be like, well, they're graphic novels. Like we were really trying to legitimize ourselves. But I misunderstood what Barry was sort of saying there. And I think Barry, I don't know him personally. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm just complete guessing, honestly. but I think he was talking about it on the level that you are. I think it was not a pretentiousness thing. I think that literally he was talking about the people use the term cartoonist similarly, but it's like somebody that does all the things and is not just a writer or a penciler or an inker. As I've gone, I've found myself picking up more skills, different things. I And like you said about your buddy, I've learned how much I respect the work of letterers and colorists and designers and and I mean, you joked about, he doesn't do his own editing, but editors also deal with so much stuff and get just disrespected right and
Yes.
left. I have had situations just in the past couple months where like I've been working on something and called my editors in a near panic and just been like, is this going to happen? Is this like what's going on here? And I think a lot about how they are hurting cats. They're just putting out as many fires as they can. And so editors, in spite of not always being everybody's favorite thing to point to, like, editors really work very, very hard. Everybody that does this process works really hard. I've learned as I've done more where I'm doing completely creator-owned stuff. Or like I did Haunthology during the pandemic, this big black and white short story hardcover collection, and I loved every step of it. But I wrote the thing, penciled, inked, and lettered. I didn't do it in color. I wanted to do it in black and white because I love black and white. But then I had to like work with an editor on it, and we had to step in and actually like work with printers and talk about all of that process. And sometimes it's just very nice to send something in and just have it appear later. Like, I'm not sure that I am a complete control freak enough where I need to do everything all the time. So yeah, like your buddy, you get good people to work with and then empower them and show them the love.
That leads me to the approach, and you and Jason Hurley.
Yeah,
you guys have obviously partnered together before on other projects as well, but like, what led to the idea of you and Jason just writing it? I mean, I know you've done some covers and things like that, correctly, but like, do you have someone else doing the interiors? Was that just timing, or just the fit for the project, or?
I'm too busy. I mean, like that. I mean, like there. I guess that's the most practical thing. Is as time goes by, and you figure out what kind of artist you want to be, and I'm almost talking more about like stylistically what kind of artist you want to be, the level of detail that you want to put in the images and the things that you want to do. Some people, smart people, I think, simplify their style. Mine has gotten more complex, more involved, more design oriented, a lot of things. I've fallen in love with texture, like doing ink splatter and all these things, which makes things take a long time. And, so I really had to be very intentional. There's, a lot of creatives have like their laundry list of projects that they want to do. Like in my, like, this is my list of the 20 stories that I want to tell in my career. And go ahead.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
But like, I have that laundry list, but I keep adding to it too. Like, I just keep having, so it's 20 things, but then like 2 will fall off, and then I'll add 3. So then I'm like, okay. And I'm constantly doing that. Like, I'm constantly finishing a couple things or one thing and then adding 2 more or another one. It never really dips below 20. Most of the time it just balloons up. It gets closer to 25, or sometimes like there was a point right before the pandemic where the list of stuff that I wanted to do was pushing like towards closer to like 27 things. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've really gotta work on getting some of these things off my list. So with that, I realized if it takes me like a solid year, because I'm also balancing other stuff that I'm doing covers, writing, developing stuff. If something I'm drawing, if I'm drawing like the interiors of a 120 page graphic novel, it's going to take me a year to do that. And a year is a long chunk of your life to be doing stuff. And so if that list is 27 things, and I'm almost 50 right now, I'm 47 years old, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get to all of those, like when I'm still gonna want to work, eventually I do want to, like maybe just, I don't know, like, I'm like, he didn't retire, but Mike Mignola, retired, and was doing like watercolor paintings all the time, which they're still amazing cover quality watercolor illustrations of the kind of stuff that he does. But you can tell that he still needs to make things, but he's not necessarily sitting at the table drawing issues all day, every day. And eventually, I do want to get there. We're gonna have to get there. Like, I can't keep this up forever. But and also, that's not even getting into stuff like relevance. Staying relevant to the industry, to a community. But so with the approach, I want to work with people that I trust, and Hurley is somebody that I trust and love, and we've been friends forever. And us finishing the beauty, we did the beauty for 30 issues. It was like over 5 years that we were working on that project together. That's a long time to do something. And when we finished the beauty, we're like, hey, we want to do something else together. But it's not going to be able to be another 30 issue, 5 year kind of thing again. Like, we just can't do that yet. I was busy doing stuff, trying to find balance. So, the idea, we always sit down and like, Hurley will have ideas and I'll have ideas, and we kind of talk about them like, oh, I'm working on this thing, or we should work on this thing, and so we have a lot of that sort of thing together. And the approach came out of that. Hurley actually worked here in Joplin. We have a small airport just outside of town, and it's like 15 minutes from here. But we live in the Midwest. In the Midwest, we get those ice storms, and it shuts everything down. And so while it didn't go quite as crazy as the story of the approach, Hurley had more than once where he slept at the airport because of ice and snow. And so we kind of had he was like, oh, it would be really cool to do something set at an airport like that during that sort of thing. And the story just built from there.
It's funny you answer the question about why it's only 5 issues, but that makes sense too, because I see that more and more now. The people I talk to on the podcast, the majority of them are in mini series or macro series. Like, they're not in this 37th issue of a series. They're doing these 5 issues, 6 issues, 10 issues, 8 issues, which is really cool, because I also think that it's something I can jump into. Like, I feel like, if you buy issue 1, I can commit to 5 issues.
Right.
If you go on an ongoing series, or it's going to go 30 or 40 issues, it's like, well, if I don't like issue 1 or 2, I don't know if I'm going to continue on. Even if I didn't like issue 1, I would continue on with 5 issues. I think you can get into 5 issues. It's not a hard thing to do. But yeah, it's kind of funny. I live in Maine, in Bangor, Maine. And so I know ice storms and things like that. The first summer I moved, or the first winter that I was living in the area that I'm in now, in 1997, we had a massive, like, week-long, no power, like, ice storm. And so that's obviously something that hit somewhat of a chord with me here. And we also have an international airport, but the international airport that you can drop people off at the gate. Like it's not like this massive airport. You drive right up, you open the door, they get out, and they basically walk through security and onto the plane. Right. So it's an international airport that's still tiny. I lived in Boston for a little while, and it's not anywhere near that size. Right. And so I could picture that happening as well. But I will say is Jesus's art works well with you and Jason's writing. Like I absolutely loved the beauty, and I think that obviously that whole team worked well together as well. But this, to me, I think is something about you and with Jesus, and obviously the coloring as well. I don't know who did coloring, but
Brett Weldley did the colors on that, and I mean the whole art team. Man, making comic books is not easy. I will say that just lining things up and just like working together and figuring everything out is not always the easiest process. And the art team, especially after the pandemic, I think one of the things that we dealt with a lot was like we all had to scramble. Everybody went pencils down, which was in comics. I mean, margins are pretty slim as it is, and we're all working as much as we can. A lot of us had to really jump in and take emergency projects, illustration projects. Hey, I can do card art, I can do any of these things, beer cans, kind of thing.
Yes.
not honing in on your territory, but we, everybody had to figure out other side gigs during the pandemic. And one of the things that really did was also shifted every long-term plan, because you have to be pretty proactive in this industry. Like you have to sort of think a year or more out at a time to try to sort of not have dead space where you're not doing something for a long time, or you're trying to get something approved, or understanding that things take a while and don't always line up is a hard thing. And I think that so many of us, especially artists, were like trying to take on as much as we could so that we could pay our bills and everything, right? But it also created a thing where like everybody is so busy now that now getting people and getting the right team together to work on something isn't always easy. And the combination of Jesus and our inker finisher Leah, who's also working on the book, and then Brett Weldley, who is our colorist on it, who actually Brett worked on, he fully illustrated an arc of the beauty. Okay. He's done colors. He did colors on some of the finale of the beauty. He did colored 40 seconds that I did with Chris Mitten over at Comixology. Brett is an amazing talent, and it's just like getting those three individuals together and like letting them do their thing, and seeing how they complement one another, especially not to diminish the line art at all, but like the way Brett pulls it all together with the color is a really lovely thing. Brett deserves every bit of love.
Who's responsible for the logo?
That's actually the design team at Boom, and we really, it's very interesting working with a company like Boom, because they know what they want out of stuff a lot of times. Like they pick projects that fit their model, but also fit like sort of slots that they're yes, we want to do a horror book here, I want to do a crime book here, and there's a whole thought process that is above my pay grade. But like they have a team that came in and they always pitch a logo, like, oh yeah, this pulls in these elements, it feels like this or whatever. And sometimes even my ideas for stuff, I'm like, what about this? And they're like, might be a little clunky for what we're doing or whatever, but then they back it up, and they have really good designers that they work with. And forgive me, I can't remember exactly who. I know that she, I think that she did the Red Mother, the logo treatment for the Red Mother too. But it is
Veronica Gutierrez and Maria Crupino. I did the design, so that must have been them that did that then. I am ecstatic about it because I feel like that's something I've talked on the podcast before, is something that I've realized that has been falling off here and there in some books that I pick up, where I look at it and I just, as a designer, I just look at it and go, okay, this is put out by a major independent publisher, and this is what you chose for a logo. It's like, to me, I don't know, I might be just in the minority as a designer, but like when I look at it and I go, that doesn't look good. Why would you do that? I could do that 2 seconds in my eyes closed better than that. Not that I'm even that good. It's just when I look at it and I go, this is actually attractive to me. And I will say, like, in darkened color on here and the lighter color on too, it looks great. So it fits your guys' vibe really well in that. And I will say also, speaking of the interior and the art, as someone who lives in a state that snows a lot in it, that snow, it looks like I love the way that it looks like snow. It doesn't look like snowflakes or anything like that. But when it's snowing, I love that the texture and everything on it looks really good. So I was very happy with that when I opened up and saw snow on there.
I think that we talk a lot about the feel of the book, and and that's there's never enough time to develop these things. Like I mean, for being honest, even, and I completely understand what you were saying about like lackluster logo design, but like, so much stuff often is made as quickly as possible. We're trying to just do the best we can. But there were several times during the process of making the approach where we sat down and said, all right, we really need to take the extra time to focus on this aspect, to really nail it down. And it happened a couple times in writing the story where there were things that like Hurley and I just went on a really massive promotional tour for the approach, and we wrote on the road some, but like we actually had to kind of we backed off and didn't write the end of issue 4 until we got back here, because we were writing on trains and in hotel rooms and stuff, which is fine, and we can do that. But I think, and I think it's easier, like if I'm writing on my own, I can do that better. If writing with 2 people, though, there has to be a real back and forth, and like I joke that like we sit there on our laptops kind of across from each other, and we're writing into a Google Doc, so we both see what's being written in the Google Doc. We look like we're playing Battleship. We just like look like we're like really intensely doing that thing. And but we put off writing the end of issue 4 until we got back from the tour, because we really needed to think through some stuff and take the time with it. And I think that that's something that has happened a couple times during the series, is like, we're not delaying stuff haphazardly. It's not like, hey, I mean, like we used to joke a lot that, like creators would be like, wanting to play video games instead of doing their jobs or something like that. And I think with this specifically, there were times with the look where we had to have a conversation and be like, hey, this is something that's really important. Let's step back and work on this a little bit more. Just and one of the things that I think that really gets hard is like, you want to respect the publication, the monthly audience. It needs to be good for everybody in the way that they do things. But the trade paperback is going to be the thing that people hold on to. It's going to be the thing that they're going to look at, in a larger setting. And I think, like that's the thing that's going to last for years. And if it doesn't work, if it doesn't fit, those little elements of, like character development or making it feel like we really talked a lot about like the color palette with Brett, about like it needs to feel like this. It needs to be a cold, threatening place, and we worked through all of that and we kind of came up with something pretty that we're very, very happy with in the end, I think. But some of that stuff takes time.
I just want you guys to be on a train somewhere or somewhere in a public place and you're on your laptops across from each other and you don't like a line or something that the other person's writing and say, I'm going to sink your battleship, and just delete that out of the document and see what people say around you. That's fine.
I think that there was specifically one train ride where I think people really were trying to figure out what we were doing, because we also talk while we, like we're talking back and forth. And so, like I'll say a line of dialogue and then Curly will be like, "Oh, that's stupid," and then he'll re-say it back to me with a change. I'm like, okay, yeah, that works. And so much of it, like we just have to seem like weirdos, when we're going back and forth on this stuff. But yeah, we need to work in, you sunk my battleship into
I'm gonna like read a book from you guys some point in the future and send me a line in the actual book, and I'm like, aha, I know where that came from. I'm guessing the team over at Boom helps with the variant covers. Like, do you get to pick who gets to do variant covers, or is this something they approach you?
A little bit of both. I mean, the thing about it, like, variant covers, yeah, Francesco, I mean, first of all, it's just fantastic. We and both Francesco and Megan Hutchinson on issue 1, but then Megan actually is doing like the B covers for all the books, the horror movie poster kind of, or I guess airplane movie poster variants. And we know both Francesco and Megan personally, and you always try to get like good people that you love their art and you like them as people. And I think that was the thing with the team, is always like, you try to bring in people that you like, first of all, and luckily we know incredibly talented individuals that kill it every time. I mean, there's a reason that Francesco is one of the most sought after variant cover artists out there. He's that good and does amazing things consistently. But we, their Boom also comes in and says, like, hey, this person's hot right now. We should do a cover with them. There's there's always a situation where you'll like, I regularly start following artists on Instagram and talk to them a little bit, and then I'm like, hey, would you like to do a variant cover for whatever? And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But we really lucked out with the approach and got some fantastic cover artists.
I said I love this cover, but I think I picked it up originally because of the spot gloss, honestly. Because of I looked at it from the shop. I must have I think I got it like a week or two after I got my cover A,
right?
And I just see like from an angle of the lighting in the comic shop, and I was like, wait, what is that? Yeah. And I think it works great. I know Brian K. Vaughan is completely against variant covers, but what I always sell a variant cover is a regular who buys hundreds of dollars of the books every week at my LCS, Galactic Comics and Collectibles in Bangor. he bought this because he's a huge Francisco fan, and so he now has a copy of the approach because of his favorite comic book artist being variant cover artist. So like that does wonders, I think, for small and maybe potentially unknown properties like this that can do something for. So now he read it and he went out and bought issue 2. So it's like that to me is huge too. So I think there's a mixture of getting the right people to do your books, but also, like I said, if you broad into who does it, you might get into some categories of, you know, my buddy's a big Scotty Young fan as well as I am. If you do a Scotty Young cover, maybe you pick up a book that you didn't normally pick up. I mean, most of them are Marvel, but he does do other stuff. And and there's the variant covers do that. Peach Momoko is another one that people, you know, from a distance can see that. And then to me personally, one of my favorite artists of all time is Michael Del Mundo, and he does this exact same thing to me. I might pick up a book that I would not normally pick up if the cover is just like breathtaking like that. So not that your cover A is not amazing, but
no, but you know, but I think that, you know, I think that we sometimes in comics get so set in this idea that like the way that I appreciate a thing it's kind of the only way. Like forever, I grew up being a Wednesday warrior, right? I went, you know, you're talking about spending, you know, $100 a week or more, you know, kind of thing. And I was that guy. And then, you know, as you know, I have so much less time now because I'm constantly writing and drawing that like the stack of stuff that I have to read beside my bed is like most of the structure of my room at this point. Like I'm pretty sure if my house caves in, it's going to be due to the weight of comics. But like, because I prefer reading week to week or preferred reading week to week, doesn't mean that that's the only way to do things. And, you know, like, you know, digital has come along, and I, you know, at first I was like, I'm not a huge digital guy, but then like, there's certain things that I just buy digitally because it's convenient in the moment. You know, I was on a tour, and I would go and I'd buy different comics or different trades at each shop. But then there were like a couple things where I was like, I'm literally running out of room in my bags to actually pack more stuff. I kind of wanted to read a couple thing, so I bought it digitally. You know, and then I got home and I'm like, okay, well, I'll buy the trade. And I think that there's different ways. Fandom is different for all of us, you know, and you know, like, is Brian K. Vaughan wrong for saying he doesn't like variant covers? No, that's how he feels, and that's valid, and I support that. And he doesn't have to do variant covers on his books, absolutely not. But I also understand when you're talking about, you know, like that there are books out there that people buy just because they see a Francesco, you know, cover, just because they see a Scotty Young cover. You know, there are things out there where the different ways that we express ourselves as fans, the different ways that we enjoy fandom, yours is not like your fandom is not like mine, but they're all valid, and we have to kind of support that and understand that every little thing kind of makes comics work a little bit better, you know. And again, talking about stuff like the margins in comics is like, look, you know, if you're smart about a variant cover and you do it as a company, it could raise your sales by 500 copies, 1,000 copies more. That's a big deal, you know, and that only makes the creator that you appreciate able to do more stuff. And I think that, you know, as we go, you get somebody like Vaughn. I think that as you go, he takes really great care of the people that work with him. You know, like he and Fiona on Saga and the entire team are really well taken care of. You know, he takes care of his team, but he doesn't necessarily need the extra sales of variant covers. He just believes in the stuff that he makes. And, you know, but I think that, and you get regular people, that sounds weird, but like, us folks that are, you know, solid B tier creators or whatever it is, making good books and putting them out there. And you kind of need every sale that you can get. You can get every pair of eyes, and then you grow from there. So read how you want to read, like what you want to like.
I have 2 copies of your book that I would know. I mean, think about it. It's double the sales on this book because I bought a cover A and a cover whatever C or D, whatever it is, on this book. And I think that's huge to me. And I think the majority of comic book readers, I mean, this is basically like a trading card to me at this point because I took it out of the packaging to show the shininess of it. But like other than that, it's gonna be in this bag and board until the day I die, most likely. This one will come in and out, but like this one will stay in there. So it's the majority of the books that I have behind me, I either have an audio book or on my iPad. I just wanted the also physical copy so I could pull through here and there and in collections and in hoarding and all that stuff too. So it is a different in everything, collecting comic books. That's why it's called collecting. If you ask Diamond, there's no such thing as a collector. They're periodicals. But if you most of us, it's collecting. It's the reading is somewhat secondary for a lot of people. But from diehard comic book fans like myself, reading is number one.
Right. Well, but I just also, like that again, just proves the point that like things how you like things, and like, I do think that it's very easy. And I know this is going to come as a surprise, but like that on social media, it's very easy to get up in arms about things, but from time to time you get fans, even creators talking about, like people that don't have share the same view of fandom that they do, and yet they get angry about it. And I just want people to be able to read what they want to read the way that they want to read it. If you just want to get stuff digital, I mean, like, look, unless you're going to tell me that you're stealing it, please don't steal it. This probably is the difference in feeding somebody's family or not.
Yes.
But don't steal it. But read it. Read it digitally if you want to read it digitally. Read it in I think that forever, there are reasons why you want to read things. Music is a good example, actually. Everybody posted their Spotify lists, and I get why people have Spotify and everything like that, but like Spotify pays the least to their artists, of anything out there. So I try to go to like something like Bandcamp to buy stuff. That's generally a lot of the way that I get stuff. I often will even go in and buy like something digitally, and then I'll buy it on vinyl too. But I think that music has a lot of direct correlation to comics. And it's like, unless you're just like swiping it, you can read it anyway. The most effective way for you to read it is to pre-order it. Like, and I say effective, the best way for creatives, for companies specifically, is pre-order it when it comes out. Like pre-order that book. So then, because if you have good single issue sales, sometimes you don't even get a trade on stuff. Like most of the time you do. And I've been very fortunate in my career to have trades made of the things that I do. But like sometimes you don't get a trade. Sometimes you don't get a volume 2. Sometimes, and then so sometimes waiting for the trade is not the best thing. But also I understand why you would. Waiting for the hardcover gets even trickier because it has to sell well in singles, and then it has to sell well in trades, and then it has to be able to sell. There has to be a market because hardcovers are incredibly expensive to produce. So waiting for the hardcover is another thing that's tricky. And while I know that those layers exist, I still want to encourage people to read how they want to read. That's the thing.
I've been a floppy comic book reader, and I'm a cover A kind of guy. I mean, I get cover. If I buy a cover B or cover C, I buy the A and the cover B and cover C because it's, to me, I just think that the cover A was the one that was designed obviously for the series, and it's just trying to sell the series as what it is. But also, I'm in a comic book, like a graphic novel book club that we have at my local LCS, and we just read last week. We just finished I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young, and I own these in single floppies. But like part of the reason why my LCS is doing this comic book club is to also sell trades to their customers. So I didn't want to be the guy who's like, oh, by the way, I already have those issues. So I was like, oh, and he gives 25% off to people who do the book. So I was like, oh, $7.50 for I hate. Now I can read this one instead of having to pull the floppies out, and I can read this, every day if I wanted to. I don't know if I'm gonna read every day, but luckily I do see that it seems like this summer the approach will be out in trade.
Yeah. We'll get
fluid on that, but
we'll get the approach out in trade. I love getting to see stuff in different formats too. Like as just a fan, like one of the ones. So basically, I've purchased Hellboy in every format that it's come out in. So I get the single issues, and then I get the trades, and then I'll get the hardcover, and like the oversized hardcover, and then when they do it in sequential order, I'll go and get that. Like, I constantly rebuy Hellboy, and it's just because that's one of my things, the way it is. But I do love also seeing those things in different formats and kind of added design and things like that. And that's uber nerdy, but like I love seeing the way that stuff gets repackaged. And I don't do it with everything, but specifically like with Hellboy, that's something that I really do. And I love seeing it in the different formats. And with my own stuff, it's like, oh, I'll see the artwork when it comes in, and then I'll see the finished thing when it comes in digitally, and then I'll get I'll get my comps of it, and I'll look at the issue, and then I'll look, but then I'll look at it on my iPad, like digitally. I'll look at it and be like, oh, okay, well that's gorgeous. Like digital, I will say that one of the things about looking at comics on the iPad, the colors are just stunning. I love seeing comic book color on those, because often it's exactly how it's calibrated.
And you can critique someone's artwork a lot harder too, though, because you can pinch and
yeah. Sure.
Well, that line doesn't connect the way it should connect, or that's not as smooth as they probably wanted it to be smooth. But no,
yeah.
I read because my wife goes to bed. We will both get into bed around the same time, but she like goes to bed earlier because she has to wake up earlier. And I realize you can't like leave a light on in the bedroom and read laying down from a floppy or even a trade. So a lot of times, you mentioned the different versions. A lot of time I own floppies for most things and have purchased it digitally because of the fact that I want to be able to read it on my iPad. I'm lucky enough in the few that I don't have to. I buy it. I still buy everything that I review. Most of them, if I like it. But I am lucky enough to get review advanced PDF, so I can have that access to that as well. So that's the good stuff about reading it digitally, is I can read it on there, and I can if I need to go back and find things and save pages for certain things, I can do that too, which is nice. Which you can't. I don't want to dog ear my trades or my floppies. So it's reading digital. There is something to be said about reading digital, but there's also something to be said about the smell and the feel of a physical book, whether it's a trade or it's a floppy. And I do like the decisions making and the design aspect of it, how you separate different issues in a trade, and do you put all the covers in the back? Do you have special covers that separate chapters? I will say, and I'm not going to call it the actual book, but a recent trade just got released, and they have the 5 issues that were in that trade. They picked the worst cover to be the cover of the trade. And I was like, you could have just done cover 1 from issue 1, and it would have been better than the cover you picked. It was like issue 4 or something like that. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, why did they do that? But someone up there in the company was like, this is the best cover to sell the book, so we're gonna put this on there.
That tends to, there are times where I'm like, oh, why did we choose that? But again, above my pay grade, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
You just kind of just nod, and and it's weird because it's like I've done stuff where I specifically asked, like, hey, I know that cover 1 was supposed to be the cover that spoke to everything about this series, but like, man, cover 3 is actually really, really strong. What if we use that instead, kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it depends, but yeah, it is weird when you see stuff and you're like, oh, you chose that one. Huh? Okay.
Okay. I mean, hopefully it does well and sells well, because I mean, the book that did come out, I did like very much. So hoping that people do pick it up and buy the trade because of that cover, because I would like that book to be sold more. But it was just kind of funny seeing that, coming. Have you finished writing issue 5?
We are writing on issue 5 right now. In fact, today we're writing tomorrow so that I can do this with you today. So
look at that. Thank you very much.
Be honored. Yeah. So we're wrapping up issue 5 right now. It's not going to take us very long. Like it's really, things have escalated to a point with issue 5 where it's just like, all right, there's no stopping this at this point. So yeah, we're just basically, we're just transcribing all of the chaos right now.
There you go. So that's cool. I'm excited for that. And are you and obviously you and Jason are going to work together at some time again in the future, right?
Yeah. One of the things that really becomes an issue is having time for stuff. And the next 2 years are going to be really pretty busy for me in a different way. I am currently finishing the last 7 pages of an OGN that I've been working on for well over a year, drawing. And it's really hard. It's been a long haul, because I'm trying to balance out, everything else that I'm doing, and I also just want to, again, I'm a picky artist that wants to rock everything that I'm doing, and really, really give it the love and respect that it deserves. And so I am finishing that. I'm finishing the approach, and I'm finishing another thing that I've been writing on, sort of like all at the same time. So I'll be done on the 23rd of this month with should be done with all of that right before the holidays.
There you go.
And then I have a reset. And a lot of what I'm going to be doing in 2023 and 2024 is kind of very calculated, me taking projects, working on projects that sort of fit a direction that I've been building for my career. So yeah, Hurley and I will definitely work together again, because we love working together and we're friends. But a lot of what we're doing in 2023 definitely is sort of investing in ourselves individually. And this is the thing about, I think, co-writing on stuff, is that sometimes I feel like people don't know, like, well, are they only good writers together?
Yeah.
Like what if they go and do this? And like, one of the things, I have been fortunate in my career to work in comics for as long as I have. A much more of a known brand, but like, I really want to shine a light on Hurley on his own a little bit too, and just, so I've really been encouraging him to write more stuff on his own, to sort of build his brand a little bit. So then, we can come back together and do more stuff and be strong, but people can actually be like, oh, wait, it's not just, it's not just the two of you together, or it's not, I never want people to think it's me, and then somewhere down the line, other people that I work with. I work with people because I love them and because I respect their work and I respect what they bring to a situation. And Hurley definitely brings something to what we do. And so I want to push him to do more on his own. And then, like I said, after having over a year and a half, closer to 2 years of sort of having to, to finish up large scale projects, I'm gonna kind of like the next thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work on a graphic novel that I'm both writing and drawing. It's just gonna be all me, and that's gonna take a little while, but
Mhm.
it's definitely something that I've been excited about and building towards.
That's awesome. And if anybody hasn't read who's listening to the podcast, is Red Mother's also excellent. Just so you know that that's a
Okay.
I say solo project, but it's solo writing project for you.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
was good. That was really, really good as well. So we can check that out. Um, is the beauty gonna make it to a screen somewhere?
maybe.
you
Uh, Hopefully.
you don't have to spoil. You don't have to say anything
No,
else.
no,
Just
no. I mean, production takes forever
yeah.
on things. I've really there was a project that I did years ago, and was one of my first big creator owned projects, and it did well, but like it triggered like a little bit of a back and forth, kind of, I don't want to say bidding war, but there's some exciting stuff that happened out the gate with it, and that then it didn't get
Mhm.
made, and then over 10 years later, it's back and it's more exciting than ever, and some stuff's happening with it, and I had to kind of adjust my thinking. I was
Mhm.
like, oh, if this happens, or when this happens, it kind of becomes like waiting for Godot, right? You eventually it'll happen, but you just never know when. And the beauty, we've had the beauty set up for a while now, in the current iteration, and it's just timing. It's just timing as far as getting, everybody that's involved in it is very excited about it. And, they want to do a cool thing. It's just all the other projects that are, in development and all that stuff. And how do you get, this and that? But yeah, I think we definitely stand a good chance. I got a text about it, over the weekend. Like, hey, talked with our guy. This is, but definitives. I don't have a date yet, but
Well,
I
people don't know. I mean, also, that's like I say, is that how many things? I mean, when something's based on another property like this, it's easier for the news to be out there just rumbling around. There's so many projects that are made for TV that you never even know that are ever even in discussion to be made at some point. So we understand as fans of comic books, as well as people who report on it and talk about it. We understand that just because something ends up on the internet saying it's been optioned or is going to make it to the screen, it's possible. And hopefully, in the fact of the beauty, because I love the book and I think it would make a great TV show or movie or something like that, it goes somewhere, but it's also an opportunity for it to not go anywhere at all. So
yeah,
it is hit or miss, and it depends on the time. Like you mentioned about Boom and having it fit things. I mean, I think bigger companies who make these multimedia projects also have to fit things in certain places at certain times. And
right.
comic books do make excellent adaptations. We have seen that over and over and over again, and hoping that more projects. I mean, I'd love to see The Approach, Red Mother. I'd love all these things to be seen, as well as Red, because why not, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I more, something moving into other media for me means that I get to make more comics.
mhm,
Like that's always the thing, and talking about like announcements of stuff being optioned. It's like most of the stuff that most of my creator owned stuff that I've done is optioned.
mhm,
But that doesn't,
yeah,
especially specifically with the beauty. One of the things we were like, we're not going to announce the option
yeah,
because like I don't know, it's like it's going to take 5 years or 7 years or however long it takes. I mean, there is stuff out there from friends that like, you know uh they have a pilot that happened, and it didn't go anywhere. I mean, I think one of the best examples of kind of something that was in development from pretty much day one, and then it sort of happened, and then changes happened, was like Powers is a really
mhm,
good example. Powers was going to be, movie, and then a TV show, and then this, and then it was finally a Sony exclusive TV show.
It was
You know,
Sony was a PlayStation Network exclusive TV show.
yeah. Oh, there you go. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like, I understand how that happens, and I understand how stuff gets there. And sometimes like even like Hellboy, you look at Hellboy and you say, okay, well, there were two Del Toro movies, and then they completely decided they're going to reboot it, and that doesn't work. And so it's like, will we get another version?
Yeah.
Will we get a third Del Toro movie? Probably not. Will we? But stuff shifts. And for me personally, I always think about stuff. People are always like, well, what do you think of this adaptation of this beloved comic? And I'm like, oh, it works or it doesn't for me personally. But like, I also have the comic. I have that perfect version. We're watching The Sandman right now, and really loving it. It's a fantastic adaptation. It's a great TV show, and from an amazing comic. But like, sometimes it works like that. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get shows that are better than the comic. That happens too. And it just is what it is.
And I just hope the reason why I personally have talked with people and other in friends and things like that on here about option things or things that get made into other things, I'm hoping that thing is a marketing tool to sell the book itself. Like, I feel like because of, like, for example, Station 11, the mini series that came out on I think it was Hulu or whatever it was, I read the book because I knew that was coming and I wanted to read it before. So I'm hoping it's a marketing tool of sorts, that if the Beauty does end up on TV or movie, you get to go out and buy the trades. Or, if you find the single issues here. What's funny is I got somewhere over here a random sent to me. I feel like it was on eBay or something, or some sort of free I don't know what it was, but I got a package before I even knew what the Beauty was. It was a little while ago. And in the book, in the package, was a issue 20, whatever it was. And it was signed by an artist that wasn't, it was probably the person who did the book or whatever. But it was the funniest thing, because it was like this random issue. And I was like, oh, it's signed by someone, so I'll just put it over there in a box. So, but it was the funniest thing. And then I stumbled upon the Beauty, I don't know, a little while ago, and I was just like, oh, I think I have one of these. And I was laughing. I was like, I can't believe I have this single random issue from, like I said, it was like 21 or 22 or something. I don't know what it was, but it was just kind of funny how that happens like that someone somewhere else had like a stack of them. And we're just like, oh, we'll just send these out with people for free. I mean, I got my buddy Ben Bishop wrote this. This is called The Aggregate.
Oh, cool.
It's Ben Bishop writes or draws for the Last Ronin series and stuff like that. But he did this. It's a choose your own adventure. I can't use the word choose your own adventure because it's copywritten, but it's he calls it split decision. So you just choose, in there. This is a Kickstarter exclusive that I was not a part of, that I bought on eBay, that's signed and numbered. It's number 125 for $5. I told him, and I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry I didn't buy it directly from you. He goes, dude, you got that book for $5. More power to you. So some random person just didn't want it anymore. Must have supported him in the original thing, and I got it for $5. So it's funny how things randomly show up in your life and they connect in a different way. But yeah.
Well, and I think that, I talk a lot about that. Like, the comics industry is such a small industry. It's like, on one hand, you kind of look and you're like, oh, it's fairly big. It's like, no, it's really not huge. We all kind of know each other. We all, we all know how most of this stuff works, and I look, I look at things where, like, there'll be something that I'll be cleaning out a box of stuff, and I'll find like an ash can edition of a book that, from like, oh wow, that I didn't even know that I had this. And it's like, something that, like, I've been reading ever since, or there was or like, I'll pop open something and I'll find like a little sketch from a guy that I met at a convention. 20 years ago that's now huge or something like that. And it's like, all right, well, that's it's just it's a weird interesting industry in the way that, like, you know, we reflexively collect stuff sometimes, and then we always put it somewhere, and then we're like, oh, wait a minute, that becomes something that you love finding again later. I collect a lot of like sketchbooks from creators, like and like it's really weird. I've got like literally like, and they're like the ash can style sketchbook, mostly, but like I've got sketchbooks that are like 20 years old, and I've got sketchbooks from creators that we've lost. It's very, very interesting going through and, like, seeing the change in the industry through stuff like that, from sketchbooks and stuff, like where now things are expected to be a little slicker sometimes, or like, but there's back in the day when it's like literally folded over typing paper that's printed on and stuff like that. I love that sort of stuff.
It's funny. I've given away books that, like I said, some reason, some people on eBay, when they send it media mail, they'll just like toss in a couple of extra books to like clear out their collection of sorts. Right. And I've gotten books before that I just gave to my LCS or gave to a friend's kid or something like that. Then like 3 months later, I find out it's this exclusive cover that even the person sending it didn't realize would be something. And you look online, it's $100, selling $100 on eBay now. And I'm like, oh. So now whenever someone sends me anything extra, I keep it. I'm like, you never know. It's never going to happen again. They're all worthless. It's just this throw in stuff. But maybe one of these days it will pay for the next purchase I have.
Exactly.
So that's what that random issue of the beauty is going to be like, right? That one issue when it is made into something, when it's made into something, there's going to be something about that issue on the TV screen and the movie screen, and it's going to be worth some money. There you go.
That'll be like the opening scene from the first episode. Like,
I'll have it. I'll be like, look at this. That person who sent it to me.
Well, it'll be the one that was also massively under ordered or something like that.
Exactly right.
Except by that one guy.
By that one guy, he ordered all of them. But no, the approach. So issue 1 was out in the stores last month, and then November 30th it hit issue 2. Mm-hmm. Issue 3 comes out in December. And then we got
maybe early January. It's
January 4th. January 4th. I have it written down. Okay. January 4th. Sorry. Yes. Yeah. January 4th. So get in touch with your LCS to get that. Hopefully no stores have them left for issues 1 and 2, because they sold them all, because they,
Right. Yeah.
But if there is any at other stores, grab them at your LCS, or do you don't have any copies on your website or anything like that, right? You just
we have, so we did a secret variant, which is in brown paper.
Yeah.
Not because it's something that
it's alcohol.
Exactly. It's a bottle. It's
a 40
wrapped around a bottle of scotch is what it is, which might be a genius idea. I need to look into that. But it's a special cover that we did, and what we did was we took it to on tour with us, and we have like one box, and there's not a lot of copies left. We because we think we're witty, we printed 666 copies, because we're nerds. But we have one box, and I'm not sure how many are in it, but like a few copies left. So we put them up on my website. I feel I always feel guilty, especially because of the pandemic in the past couple of years. Not everybody can get to shows.
Yeah.
Not everybody can get to store signings. First of all, the tour was limited to the United States a lot. Like if you live in Canada or anywhere else, you couldn't necessarily get it. So, So what we've done now is we've made the secret variants of the Approach #1 are available on my site, so people can get those. It's an extra special rare thing if you're an uber nerd and just like absolute rarity. I think the secret variant is the lowest print run of any of the covers that we did. So there is that. But so that's.
I had it in my cart on Black Friday, and I was laying in bed with it, and my phone didn't have, because I clicked on the link on Instagram probably,
Oh
and
yeah.
because my phone didn't have my credit card information saved because it was through Instagram, I have to start remembering to click the button. I was like, oh, I'll go get it when I get up, and then I forgot, and I never.
No, I've been
I'm
running
like,
into
it
that.
saved me money, but in the same sense, I was like, I kind of wanted that cover.
Yeah, no, it's something that I've been on, and the Black Friday sale is still on, my friend, so you can get that. But no, I've run into that a lot lately. Like, I have all, I have an iPhone. I can, it's a one click kind of thing, right? And if it's going through a couple of different things lately, it like doesn't save that information. I'm like, damn it! Like, can we please like make this? I understand. I understand the extra security needs if you're going through a third party, or not, but like you're going through an app.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, sometimes just want to be able to like order, a pair of socks that look like the carpet from The Shining or something like that.
Yeah. Which I was just gonna say. I mean, as a person who lives in Bangor, Maine, home of Stephen King, there is some great horror Stephen King artwork on your website, as well as The Shining. Nicholas on the, I was just saying Nicholas Cage, but it's not Nicholas Cage. It's on my brain.
Terrifying. Yeah.
My wife and I are big fans of National Treasure, the movie series.
Right.
So as a bonus episode coming up in a week or two, is my wife and I are talking about those two movies on the episode. So that's why Nicolas Cage is on my brain today. But no, but Jack, there's the I just like this, literally your secret variant, and then the next thing over is a print of From The Shining. So check.
Yeah. I do. Except for this year, because I was on tour, every year for October, I do 31 Days of Halloween, where I do at least one warm-up sketch a day featuring horror movie characters. And that, so there, I've got some pieces up, some of those little original pieces up on the site. So
you see the grabber from Black Phone.
Yeah.
And some other ones. Yep. I think they're excellent. First of all, obviously, not to make your head bigger or anything like that. I see some stuff in Squid Game on there. People are Squid Game fans. So it's jeremyhaun.com.
Yeah. Just my name. It's jeremyhaun.com.
And then there's a store button on there, and then there's information on there as well. I think you should have done a variant cover of Red Mother with what's his name? Carl from Walking Dead. With his eye missing instead of the mother. No, the jeremyhaun.com. You're on Instagram. If you want bad movie recommendations, go over to Jeremy's Instagram, or not Jeremy, Jason's Instagram. He's posting all these stupid Christmas movies up there.
I'm just going to suggest this: lovingly do a 30-day snooze on Hurley's account for Christmas. Just do yourself a favor, unless you love extensive reviews of every absolutely horrible holiday rom-com.
I saw it for a second there. I thought he was rating out of 100,
right?
But he's doing 100 movies, and I didn't realize that it was like Home Alone, 2 out of 100. I'm like, this guy has no idea. No. Movie 2 out of 100. Okay, now I understand where he's coming from on that. I mean, I will say I did watch Black Christmas, which is pretty. Yeah. And then I watched Rare Exports. I'd never seen that one. I saw that one this year, which is good. I've watched a bunch of bad movies. So I do.
There's good holiday movies.
Yes.
Hurley's just probably not watching them.
I didn't know some of these movies existed until I saw his Instagram. I'm busting his balls with all this. But reasonably, like, he has a lot of love for holiday movies and just loves the ritual of deep diving into something like that. But like, being on tour together, he's like building up to his massive Christmas movie watch, and like is so excited and telling, and like I didn't realize how many Christmas movies Hallmark releases every year. And it's insane. Like there are probably 25 Christmas movies released new every year. It's insane. I will say I did watch, not because of him, but because of something else. I watched The Killing Tree that he also watched. It is absolutely one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. It's a demonic, possessed, fake Christmas tree, and it kills people. It's bad. It's really, really bad. It almost like feels like someone made it as a joke, but it's not. Like it's a real horror movie. And so, yeah, I'm not looking forward to that. What I am looking forward to is The Mean One. Is the new Grinch parody horror movie with David Howard Thornton, who played Art the Clown on Terrifier. He is the Grinch, or the Mean One, because they can't actually use anything from the actual movie or book because it's copywritten. But check that out. Trailers on our website, capesandtights.com. No, but check out jeremyhaun.com, and then you're on Instagram, and you might be still on Twitter. I don't know who's on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go anywhere. I just you know, I just try to bop on and post silly stuff, and I don't pay too much attention.
I mean, it's not going anywhere. If anybody has any thoughts that it's actually going to go anywhere, I feel like it's we're all still on there. If you want to leave,
I think that, like, look, it's all so tricky. You know, like, Instagram was arguably my favorite social media experience forever, and then the algorithm, kind of made it sort of miserable. And so so I'm like, I'm not as into it as I was, but like, as with comics, one of the things that I think is just like sort of a tenet of who I am, whether it's talking about comics or social media or any of this, it's like, make your experience your experience. You don't have to like do something just because somebody says you should. You don't have to stay on Instagram or Twitter because you've been there. You don't have to leave. Like, just do what you do. And like, I try to, stuff affects me sometimes a little too much, and so I just try to like experience things on my own terms. Like, if somebody's terrible, I'm probably not going to follow them. Like it's just, I just kind of I have too much work to do, so I'm just gonna let it be what it is and then go on from there.
Exactly. But again, for us, in the art of trying to sell something or tell someone about something, social media has been a wonder in that, because I don't think that 10,000-15,000 copies of a comic book would be sold if it wasn't for the internet promoting these things as well. Yeah. So it's a good thing. But I buy your local comic book shop to see if they have an approach. But I also talked to my buddy who owns a bookstore last week on the podcast about some like gifts that you should get people for Christmas or the holidays. And we mentioned buying local and shopping local, but in the same sense, the even better thing to do, and I don't want to cut out the LCS, but buying directly from the people who make the stuff too. That's where they're going to make a little bit more money on it. So if you're trying to support local, the artists are also technically, the creators are also local. So going to their websites like jeremyhaun.com is a really good thing to do. But again, also shop LCSs because they are a small business as well.
And that's, And I think that, I always try my best to have stuff available on my site, but I also try to think about local comic shops. Like, I'm not really wanting to compete directly with them. There's still stuff that I'm going to have on there because you get like a fan from Kenya, that like literally sends away for your book. And
I consider your website, people's websites for artists or creators, your website is a year-round Comic-Con booth.
Yeah, exactly.
The people who can't get, I live in Bangor, Maine. We have our own Comic-Cons, things like that. But I'm not, on a regular basis, I'm not going to be able to run into you at a comic convention unless I go to specific ones. And so having this ability to be able to buy things directly from artists and creators online is huge in my opinion. And so, shopping local is great. And honestly, I don't want to say buy on big websites too, but if you buy someone's comic book or graphic novel from a big site too, it's a trickle effect too. The creators still got something out of it. So, like buying a creator property or some sort of book that someone worked hard to make, no matter where you buy it, it's good than buying, I don't know, a video game or something like that, because it's not as connected.
Yeah. we talked a lot about, Small Business Saturday, and like one of the things that I think you may have seen it around a little bit, people posting about it, but like small businesses, like your local comic shop is a small business, and it needs every bit of support that you can get. Creators themselves, comic creators are small businesses.
Mm-hmm.
We are. That's like no matter how you look at it, So every, just you want to get something special for somebody, look at your favorite creator. I think most of the time, if you're especially like image first trades, at least for like a lot of them are like $10.
Yep.
And it's like everybody, if you love a comic, everybody around you, probably would appreciate your favorite comic, and it's a $10 trade. If you get like a Black Friday special or get something, like you did with I Hate Fairyland, where you got it for $8, it's like that's a heck of a deal. You can't really complain about that. And so, yeah, I don't know. I am a big, support small business, which includes, brick and mortar stores and creators themselves. Yeah.
Well, I also said, I told someone at the comic book shop the other day, was when I was hanging out in there, it was also eBay's a thing. And I know you can buy things on these company sites like eBay and things like that. But before you go to look for something that maybe was just optioned or for some reason is going big, check out the creators' websites first. Because I knew a ton of people who bought like $50 issue ones of 8 Billion Genies on eBay. And Ryan Brown was selling them signed by both him and Charles Soule on their website for $25. So like check out the local person or the artist, the creator first, because it's all likelihood you can find that book for way cheaper and potentially get it signed or personalized to you.
Right. So. Yeah. And I get that it's a whole business. I get that it's what people do, but yeah, check with creators. Like sometimes even a very limited number of those ultra rare books, they probably are not like $5 or something like that. But would you rather pay $100 for something or possibly 20? It's like check with the creators.
That was my whole thing. It was it was funny though, because I did do that because I'm a big Charles Soule fan and I loved 8 Billion Genies. I bought one of those to have for my collection, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, he ended up just showing up in our town and going to my LCS and talking to my local comic book shop just by happened to be in Bangor trying to find Stephen King things. And I was just like, I just bought this book from you. I could have just brought what I bought on a new comic book day to you and have you sign it. But no, just shop small businesses as much as you can. And that includes creators, like you said. But the approach is available now. Anything else that you want to promote at all? I mean, I think it's just the approach right now, right?
The approach right now, I have been in the eternal cycle of waiting for my big Kickstarter anthology. I did that project. It's being printed, and as you know, anything being printed right now because of the printing markets stuff shutting down, paper shortages. It's been. I'm patient with other people, but I'm not really patient with like my stuff. So it's like, if you produce a book and I'm waiting on it, I'll be like, cool, it'll get here when it gets here. For me personally, I'm like, it needs to be, I'm like grumpy and growly all the time. But I've been waiting as patiently as I can for this book, and all of my supporters were really patient and have been. And so I'm getting ready to do a big announcement because I think it's actually being tossed on a boat to be shipped to me very soon.
There you go.
So like in the next couple of weeks, it'll be a nice. I don't think I'll get it by the holidays. That would be weird, but it's coming from Asia, so maybe. But
you might get it by the holidays. But
I might get it by the holidays. No one else is getting it by the holidays. But I'm going to turn it around. Yeah. But we did announce that we're doing the book, the edition that people were getting from the Kickstarter, the backers. It's a hardcover. It's a beautiful spot gloss fan. It's spot gloss and the whole 9 yards. It's a beautiful collection, but we are doing a stripped down version that doesn't have like all the bonus material. It's going to be a soft cover. It's going to be slightly smaller size. It's going to be coming out from Image in May.
Cool.
So everybody that backed the book will have it in hand well before it comes out. That's a thing that maybe that's part of why I'm so grumpy about it. I'm like, this needs to be, like we originally were talking about releasing the soft cover from Image in March. And I was like, that's not enough. I can't, I have to have it in every single backer's hand prior to it being released in another format. But Anthology is going to be coming out in May from Image Comics. It's my pandemic short story horror collection. It's about the thoughts and feelings that we had during the pandemic. It's not literally it's all horror stories or post-apocalyptic stories or weird, creepy slice of life stories. It's not actually about COVID or anything like that. I was like, I want to tell stories about the anger or loneliness or feelings.
Yeah.
Not actually, all the really tough stuff. So, but that's out in May. So you can check that out when it's a few months out, but it'll be.
Well, that's that. And like I said, this summer, the approach will be in a trade as well. And we'll add it to our trade paperback graphic novel club reading list so that everybody else in the club can read it too. Because I am ecstatic about it so far. I've read two issues. And again, I got to read issue 2 a couple weeks ago because I got it from Boom. But yeah, I got it. That was the 30th. I got that the actual print version of it. So, but yeah, I appreciate you coming on, chatting. And probably hopefully sometime in the future when you have another project going on, you'll come back on and chat about that for sure too.
I love chatting, so it's good.
Absolutely. So thank you very much. And again, jeremyhaun.com is the easiest place to find everything in the world of Jeremy. And then go follow Jason also on follow Jason on social media. His Jason A. Hurley on everything that he's on. If you have an intense longing for bad rom-com Christmas movies, and we as people who I follow him and enjoy his work, and as your friend, your co-writer and friend, we don't have a problem with you waiting till January to follow him on those social media as well.
So you can exactly. I understand if you do, yes.
But I appreciate you coming on again. And again, jeremyhaun.com. The Approach is available now with Boom Studios.
All right. Thanks so much for having me, man.